Hello everyone, I'm Ieva Šataitė, Python developer at Oxylabs. Welcome to the APIs Decoded webinar, where I'll show you how to use APIs to simplify your publicly available data extraction processes. So, without further ado, let's dive in and take a look at our agenda for today. We'll start with the definition and purpose of APIs. Next, we'll explore the advantages of scraping API endpoints. Following that, we'll move on to locating API calls. We'll also cover alternative methods for data extraction in case APIs aren't available. We'll then address the data gathering challenges you might face and possible solutions. Then some practical examples in a demo part, and we'll wrap up with a Q&A session. Let's start with the question, what are APIs? So APIs, also known as application programming interfaces, enable different software components and systems to work together seamlessly and efficiently by facilitating communication and data retrieval between them. In practical terms, when you visit a website, your browser sends a request to the website server asking for the web page you want to view. Traditionally, the server would then generate an HTML document and send it back to your browser for display. However, with the rise of dynamic web applications and the need for real-time updates, websites increasingly rely on APIs to load their content. Consider, for instance, an e-commerce platform with dynamic content like a wide range of products. When a user loads a web page or performs other action like a click or a scroll, the system dynamically retrieves relevant data by sending requests to API endpoints. These endpoints then provide the necessary information to populate the web page's content. When comparing scraping API endpoints with scraping irregular URLs, there are several notable advantages, including data precision, for example. APIs ensure higher data accuracy as it provides direct access to structured data stored within the organization's publicly available databases or systems, reducing the risk of any inconsistencies. Also, APIs often provide access to valuable data that is not immediately visible on the front end of websites. For example, actions like scrolling or clicking a button to load more products may be required for this information to appear on the front end. By accessing the API endpoint directly, this data can be retrieved without performing those actions. Another notable advantage is efficiency. Scraping endpoints involves making targeted requests for specific data, bypassing the need to load unnecessary resources such as images or scripts, resulting in more efficient resource utilization. Furthermore, APIs deliver data in predictable formats such as JSON or XML, making it easier to distinguish useful information. In contrast, scraping HTML from regular URLs often requires significant cleaning and parsing efforts, leading to greater complexity and more time consumption. Additionally, changes in web page structure or layout can break your scraping logic. Now, to identify API calls on a website, you need to pay attention to some cues and patterns. First step is to filter the network traffic in your browser's developer tools by XHR and fetch requests. These are the two primary methods websites use to communicate with servers. Then, pay attention to the structure of URLs. API endpoints often have specific URL patterns. Many websites simply use word API to denote the endpoints. Versioned APIs often include version numbers in the URL, such as v1, v2, and so on. GraphQL is another identifier. Requests to GraphQL are typically POST requests, with a payload used to query specific data structures. After identifying potential API calls, examine the responses returned by the server. As mentioned earlier, APIs commonly return data in either JSON or XML format. Look for the ones that return the data you're looking for: price, recommendations, reviews, and so on. Sometimes you may encounter websites that do not make API calls for their data. In such cases, there are alternative methods to extract the needed publicly available information in structured format. Some sites, especially those using modern frameworks like Next.js, Embed JSON data directly within script tags in the HTML. One common pattern is the next data script tag. This tag contains a JSON object that holds the page's information. You can extract the content of this script tag and parse it as JSON. This method can provide a straightforward way to access structured data without complex parsing. And when no APIs or JSON data in script tags are present, you can fall back on traditional web scraping methods by parsing the HTML content directly. This approach can be quite complicated, but bear with me, I will present an easy solution in the demo part. Let's move on to a less pleasant topic, data gathering challenges. With anti-bot systems becoming more sophisticated, scraping websites and API endpoints is getting more complicated. First challenge is to define a target-specific strategy to scrape the desired public content. This could include using proxies for changing IP, for example. Some targets may only load content if requests come from a specific country, or preparing a session, which is usually using HTTP headers like user agent or accept, maybe cookies in some cases. To not get blocked by the target when scraping publicly available data on a large scale is another challenge. This requires altering your web fingerprint, which could be done by rotating headers and proxies. If you send too many requests from the same IP address, the target website may identify you as a threat and block your IP. You could also implement session reuse or randomize scraping speed by adding random breaks between requests. Implementing these techniques manually for each target can be complex and time-consuming. Some products like Oxylabs e-commerce scraper API, for example, can help simplify this process by handling proxy rotation, session management, fingerprinting, and other challenges for you, ensuring efficient data gathering. Well, I believe we are now ready to dive into the demo part and explore how to effectively work with APIs in practice. Let's open a browser and try to find an API we want to target. I'll have my browser's developer tools ready, network tab open, and let's start with example number 1. As you can see, there are numerous requests that are being made while we load this web page. Most of those requests are not necessary to retrieve the specific information we are interested in. So we're just going to filter these by fetch and XHR requests and see what we have left. Let's explore this one over here. So we can see the request URL here. I can see V1 identifier in the URL, so that's a good sign. Let's have a look at the response now. As we can see, the response is nicely formatted JSON with some recommended products in it. Great. Let's close this and let's see what happens if I scroll a bit. Okay, so we can see another request came through. That's CSS file. We're not interested in this kind of request. Let's scroll a bit more. Okay, and I can see some more calls were just made now, and this is how this web page is loading their content dynamically as we scroll the page. Great. Now let's just pick a product we would like to target, and now we're basically looking for anything product specific. So I am going to try this. We can see this is product related information in the response, but we're interested in price, description, and let's say reviews. So let's have a look if this JSON has this information. No, it does not. So let's keep going. Now this is clearly too small. So let's try another one. Another product related JSON here. Let's just have a look if it has information we want. So it does have the pricing information. Great. What about description? Okay, its description is here, and let's just check reviews just in case. And reviews and ratings are here too. So we have a winner. Let's just grab this URL and do some coding. Okay, so I will be using Python and Oxylabs e-commerce scraper API here. I have taken care of some library imports as well as credentials for scraper API beforehand to save us some time. Now let's just define the URL just here. It is quite long, so let's just do some splitting so we can see it all on the screen. You will see why I want that a little later. Okay, great. Now, another thing we will need is the endpoint to make a post request to for Scraper API. Now, this product offers multiple integration methods, some synchronous and some asynchronous. For this quick example, we'll use one of the synchronous integration methods called real-time. What it basically means is that we will send the request and the connection will stay open while Scraper API is processing the job and is ready to return scraped document back as a response. Okay, so that's the endpoint. And one more thing we'll need is a payload. Now, you would put any job parameters you want to send here, like geolocation, for example. But in this case, we'll just keep it simple and put two required ones. So it's source and it's universal e-commerce in this case. And also URL, which we already have defined above. And I believe we are now ready to make a request. So our response equal to I'll use requests library to make a post request to the real-time endpoint. I'll put the payload here, and we'll also need credentials. Okay, we'll convert response to JSON as well, so it's clearer. And I'll also use some pretty printing, as the response might be quite big, so we see it nicer. And we are ready to give it a try. And just like that, within seconds, we have our response. We can see that the status code is 200, which is always a good sign. Let's look through from the top. We have some general job information here. And we can see that we have our results under the content key here. And instead of HTML, we have our JSON object. Great. Now, let's see if we can take this to another level and make it a little more dynamic by trying to use this same endpoint to retrieve information of multiple products. I have some product IDs ready over here. And as you can see, I have a request sender and results getter here. So I will be using a different integration method, which is called push-pull. Another cool feature that e-commerce scraper API offers with push-pull integration is a batch request, which allows you to send multiple URLs or queries within the same request. So we'll just get our URL here. And let's have a look where we have a product ID. So I can see a product ID here, so I'll just replace it with a placeholder. Let's call it product ID. We'll do the same here. Okay, and now what I'll do is read my product IDs from a file and format my URL with the product ID that I want to retrieve information for. And making the requests will look very similar to how we did before. It will just, instead of one URL, we'll pass a list of URLs. We'll also do a post request. And instead of printing the response, we'll save it to queries.json, so we see the endpoints to retrieve the results for. Okay. Let's see if we have our queries.json here. Yes, we do. And let's explore what information we have here. Okay, so there's some job information, job parameters here, and we have links. So we will send the GET request now to this endpoint for each of the queries to retrieve our results. So let's head to results getter. And we are retrieving the link over here for each of the query. And we'll do a GET request to retrieve our result. We will save our results in the results repository just over here, and I think we are ready to give it a try. Okay, let's see if we have our results saved. Yes, we do. So here they are. Let's just check if that's what we wanted. And this is exactly same JSON response as we saw in the browser, except that this time we have it for multiple products. Great. Okay, so let's head to example number 2. Let's choose a product once again. Okay, as you can see, this target is making requests to GraphQL, which are the post requests. Let's look through the responses. As you can see, the responses here are quite small and nothing product related. And okay, so let's just say I can't find the product related information here, or information is incomplete. So what I'll do, I'll head to elements section over here and try to find the script tag that possibly holds the page's information. I will use XPath to find the script tag. And the ID of that script tag is next data. Okay, here it is. Let's see what it holds. Yep, a huge JSON here with a lot of information. We can't even see it all in the screen here. So let's try and extract this information now. I'll grab this URL and head back to coding. We'll just use the same real-time example to keep it simple here. We would probably want another service to be responsible for saving and parsing this result, but we'll just keep it simple. Okay, so we'll just put our new URL over here. Okay, and we already have our endpoint and payload, the post request ready. So for this example, we'll just need one additional step, which is extracting the script tag and contents of it. I will use LXML module to do that. So we're just grabbing the HTML content here and putting the XPath that will find the script tag here, and we'll extract the contents. And then we will just simply load it as JSON. And that's it. We are ready to try it. And that's our response. Let's have a look what we received. Let's scroll to the top. Right. Looks like it is. Structured JSON. Let's try and see if we can find pricing information, let's say. Yep, I can see the price here. What about description? And I can see the description information is all here too. Perfect. And let's move to our final example. Grab another product. Let's choose this one. Okay. And now, as you can see that most of the requests, even though they are fetch and XHR requests, most of those return scripts or CSS or something like that, but nothing really product related. So what I'll do, just like in the previous example, I'll try and find the script tag that could possibly hold the page's information. And as you can see, the script tag is not present. So in this case, you would need to fall back to traditional scraping methods and parse the HTML directly. But as promised earlier, I will present you with an easy solution. We don't need the URL in this case. Just e-commerce scraper API has a dedicated source for Amazon product. And now you don't need the URL, just a query. Query is the product ID, which I just copied from the browser. We won't need to do any parsing here. It's easier than that. All you need to do to get structured JSON as a response is to add one additional parameter here, which is parse true. And that's it. We'll just pretty print it again. And just like that, we have our structured JSON back. As you can see, we have the pricing information here and many other keys with information. Great. One more option is to send custom parsing instructions. Let's just say that there's some information missing here that you would like to get parsed, or maybe there's too much information in this structured JSON and you don't need that many fields here. So you can send custom parsing instructions. I will show you an example now. Okay, so in this example, let's just say I just want title and price. And my instructions using XPath1 function to get the element of the title, and then the second function is to extract the text from the element, and I'll do the same for price. And that's it. And in our response, you can see that we only have price and title fields parsed. Okay, so before we start our Q&A session, let's do a quick recap. So APIs enable seamless communication and data retrieval between software components and systems. Advantages of scraping API endpoints include higher data accuracy, access to underlying data, improved efficiency compared to scraping regular URLs, and anti-bot systems pose challenges, unfortunately, and overcoming those challenges can be time-consuming and complicated, but products like Oxylabs e-commerce API can handle the heavy lifting for you. Product offers multiple integration methods, parsing options, headless browser, and enables you to handle large volumes of requests. Okay, so let's start our Q&A session and answer most common questions. So one of those is it legal to scrape APIs? Well, it is legal to scrape publicly available data as long as it is done without breaching any laws regarding the source target or data itself. Even in such cases, be respectful and try to minimize impact on the server. Scrape during off-peak hours or set a delay between your requests. Let's move on to our next question, which is, what are the future trends in web scraping and API usage that businesses should be aware of? Well, first, there is an increased use of artificial intelligence and machine learning, of course. This enhances data extraction and processing. Secondly, the adoption of GraphQL, which we already mentioned, is becoming more common, offering more flexible and efficient data querying capabilities compared to traditional APIs. And finally, enhanced security measures are being implemented, including more sophisticated CAPTCHAs and anti-bot technologies. As a result, businesses will need to develop advanced techniques or use third-party products to bypass these protections in order to continue effective data gathering. And let's do a final question. How do you handle changes in APIs, such as version updates or deprecations? Well, firstly, implement robust error handling and continuously monitor the status codes returned by the API to detect issues early. This helps in identifying and addressing changes proactively. Now, what to look out for? Well, for example, status code 301, which means moved permanently, could mean that the URL has changed, which could mean that the endpoint or the version has been updated. Follow the location provided in the response headers and update your scraper to use the new URL. Status code 400, this typically means that the request payload is incorrect, often due to changes in the data structure or required parameters. Or 404, for example, indicates that the endpoint no longer exists, and that means you would need to update it too. Updates and deprecations can indeed happen, so just write an adaptable code that would be easy for you to update any changes. Okay, thank you very much. I hope you found this useful.